Welcome to the latest of my deep dive videos. Today I'm going to explore the Leo full moon of the 1st or 2nd of February, depending on location. I'll share with you shortly on screen the exact timings for all the major cities of the world. But over the next few days we're going to see a welter of memes, comments and images about full moons. But it's important to understand the individual nature of each one. I'm going to help to guide you through this and give you a roadmap with how you can plan your next 2 weeks. A full moon provides a backdrop energy for the next 14 days. I'm astrologer Patrick Arundel. Thank you so much for joining me. If you're a returning visitor, your views, comments and likes are truly appreciated. If you're new here or yet to subscribe, please help the channel to continue to thrive and do so now. Now I'm going to share with you the exact degree, the fixed star which is conjunct the position of the moon, which is incredibly influential, but also the sun on this particular full moon is at the weakest point in its entire journey. It's in detriment in the cool detached Aquarius. What's the implication of that? Because gathered around the sun is a posse of other planetary players, and that does bring a very Aquarius feel to the sky at the present time. How's the moon going to deal with that? Because the moon in Leo can be very gregarious, warm, affectionate, playful, charismatic. What is the implication of the moon's face up with the sun? Because essentially they're in conflict. The sun is the king of the sky and the moon is the queen. But the moon's very much about protectiveness, security and nurture. The sun is about what we want to achieve in terms of our physical domain. But the tension between them is what causes a lot of things to come to the surface throughout a full moon period. But it doesn't necessarily have to be bad things. Some very positive events can come to pass as much as more challenging ones. But to really understand the detail of this, I'm going to share with you the event chart, so the exact moment when the two are in opposition at 13 degrees and 3 minutes. Intriguingly, it's the 4th and final full moon of 13 degrees, such as the synchronicity of the sky. But the event chart is going to be based from 0 degrees Aries, solar. So that gives us all a collective feel for what this will mean over the next 2 weeks. But then I'm going to share the event chart from a Placidus viewpoint. And that pictures the sun in house 4, a very moon echo there, and the position of the moon is in the 10th house, which is a much more kind of Capricornian vibe. So that's intriguing in itself. Now in terms of those exact timings, please see on the screen now. Now this is also known as a snow moon. But I do feel it's very, very important to think about the astrology in terms of the unique event this year creates. Because last year, yes, we did have Pluto in Aquarius, but we didn't have Mars, we didn't have Venus, and we didn't have Mercury. And that really does bring a much more socially interactive vibe. And the energy of Leo can be a little bit more about it can be about personal expression. It needs to be absolutely adored, and that cool detachment of the energy in Aquarius can challenge the moon at that level. So I think what we're all going to be striving for over the next 2 weeks, to be honest, we need to ask this question: when it comes to our future, Aquarius, our friendships, Aquarius, our network, Aquarius, but also our higher values and purpose, Aquarius, are we feeling fulfilled when it comes to our personal expression, particularly around our social lives, whether it's around our interests, hobbies, if we have children, what they're doing, because Leo is a great place for the moon as far as children are concerned, but critically also in terms of our love lives. So if we're not feeling the right energy in terms of our connections or our future plans, this full moon is going to bring those issues sharply into focus. Now, I mentioned that at 13 degrees and 3 minutes, this is the fourth successive full moon at that degree, that this one is in a conjunction with the fixed star Kochab. And it's a very powerful fixed star, known as being the guardian of the sky. And people who have this fixed star on their natal horoscopes can often end up in quite public positions. And just for a little bit of disclosure, this fixed star Kochab is exactly conjunct my Uranus, the ruler of the sky, but also the planet most influential in astrology in the 10th house of public connections. So that's intriguing. But in terms of someone you may have heard of, Stephen Fry, the British raconteur and comedian, intellectual, he has the moon conjunct Kochab, but also he's a big disliker of astrology, so that's intriguing. So it's also important to understand the pridefulness of Leo, because the energy of Aquarius is about working in a more collaborative, cooperative way. So the other thing this full moon could throw up is a situation where we become much more conscious of someone who wants things very much on their terms, but they're not as attuned to what the team needs. So it's almost like I, V, we. So without further ado, on the screen is the solar event chart, and you can see with the nominal ascendant at 0 degrees Aries. I use these because it helps us to understand the zodiac as a whole. And of course the gathering of Aquarius players is in house 11. House 11 can be very much to do with being more in touch with things that go beyond the physical plane. Although the co-ruler of Aquarius is the traditional Saturn, the modern ruler Uranus very much about being progressive. And what we've seen, even as the big stellium of players has moved out of Capricorn that they occupied in the early weeks of this year, more recently into Aquarius, is a pushback against very authoritarian and power-down approach. We're seeing people come together and finding their voices in a very powerful and potent way. So the sign of Aquarius may be where the sun is said to be at its quietest, but we are finding that the collective is really activated at this moment, and sometimes in a very inspirational way. So on the screen now is the event chart from a natal viewpoint, based on Placidus, Greenwich, because of the prime meridian, and universal central time. And we can see the ascendant is in the harmonizing Libra, forging a terrific angle to both the sun but also the moon. But having the moon in the 10th house is intriguing, because every planet, every house, every zodiac sign has its higher manifestation but also its lower energetic vibe. And the moon in the 10th house could amplify that more prideful energy that can come with Leo. You can also see that Jupiter, very much to do with our philosophies, international affairs, in the sign of Cancer. It's exalted there, but it is in retrograde. But it's suggesting that if we are a little too optimistic in our approach through this full moon, it probably isn't for the best, because that Jupiter is in a quincunx with Venus. So the two planets of fortune are not actually on the best of terms, but I feel the moon being so visible will make it much more difficult to disguise how we feel over the next fortnight. But having the sun, along with Mars and Pluto in the 4th house, does mean that our need to be protective especially about where we live, our homes, our properties, our immediate communities, what we hold dear. People are going to be using that Aquarius energy in a much more emotional way, I feel, over the next 2 weeks. And that will push more scrutiny into the open, perhaps through media, and of course Jupiter can be to do with broadcasting. We're going to see much more disclosure, and I feel that citizens can find a voice. And of course recently Neptune has moved back to Aries, where it spent 6 months last year, and is in an inspirational angle to the position of Pluto. So Pluto can see things revealed. Mars can be a bit niggly and defensive in the 4th house, but in Aquarius it's much more a troubadour for what's fair and what's just. It's not about necessarily what we get as individuals. So the collective in Aquarius is really providing a challenge to the moon in Leo on this particular year's lunation. Please stay with me as I go through each of the zodiac signs, from Aries through to Pisces. But just to say, you may have heard me promoting my personal horoscopes before. The key here is, if you want to make the transition from the zodiacal forecast to understand your unique situation, that's what they help you to achieve. And you can see below and click on the link about them and understand the benefits of having them prepared for you. Each chart totally unique for the person it's for, and they're also fantastic value. So Aries, your full moon forecast for the next 2 weeks. We all know that full moons can push tensions into the open and also make us conscious of something that may need to be realigned. The moon's about our emotion, our protectiveness, our need for security, but it is in the playful Leo. It's also in the second decan of that zodiac sign, which is sub-ruled by Jupiter, which creates a buoyancy. And because your ruler Mars is in a part of your chart pushing you to engage with other people and seeing transformations in its very close alliance with Pluto around some of your friendships, your interest groups, or even your long-term plans, I think the big question from this full moon is, are you enjoying it? So whether it is your interactions with others, whether it is your personal interests, whether it is to do with a relationship or those friendships, are you really enjoying it? That's the big question. And if we widen the celestial lens, Saturn, the planet which can be of course about limitation, has got 2 more weeks to go in the part of your chart that's ending a cycle. You had that brief occupation of Saturn in Aries last year from the 25th of May to the 1st of September, and that gave you a bit of a taster, but it was in a very close alliance with Neptune. Neptune's back in your sign, maybe giving you a little bit of a more spiritual dimension, maybe creating a little bit of uncertainty, a bit of blurriness. But Saturn's winding things up. So if there are certain involvements you've had, certain connections, perhaps in a collaborative way, which are actually coming to a close, you may see that palpably in your situation. But also you're heading towards a completely new start. And of course on the 20th of February we are going to see Saturn and Neptune come together in a conjunction. It's a complex one, it can have upsides, it can have challenges. But I think the cluster of energies on this particular full moon, in the part of your chart that is to do with your alliances, your values, what gives you a higher sense of purpose, is really calling out for you to question whether you're enjoying any of the themes that I've spoken of. And if you're not, then clearly it's a time for a rethink. So I think some things that are going well can be enriched, some things that are tailing off, that will become more noticeable over the next couple of weeks. But just know, throughout February, Mars, your ruler, is going to be a very strident influence, and particularly in the last week of the month when it clashes with Uranus. So if you are trying to toggle some financial issues, Mars in that part of your chart to do with your highest hopes, and perhaps your collaborations just suggest that there could be some strains coming in. So even if you're not seeing it now, if there are certain alliances which are not quite meeting up to what you truly need, they will be revealed over the next 2 weeks, well, I also feel by the end of February. To steer your course in year 2026 that much more shrewdly, why not consider buying one of my personal horoscope forecasts? Totally unique to you, 50% off if you apply Astro26 at the checkout, and it will give you, along with the Life Roadmap report, searing insights of when to time your moves over the next 12 months. Please see the link below for more. So Taurus, this full moon for you occurs in the part of your situation to do with home, family and nurture, anything to do with protectiveness, be it spiritual or more physical. If there are some things you'd like to change around where you live, whether it's decoratively, whether it's more practical or moving altogether, I think your ruler Venus, being right at the top of your chart but very close to the communicator Mercury, could see you linking out to people who can help you to drive that hope forwards. But because of the cluster of energy, including the potent duo of Mars and Pluto in your 10th house where the Sun is, they're really asking you to take seriously your talents, raise your profile and really go for a golden prize when it comes to your professional situation. So I think the balance between the moon position and the Aquarius energy is just a reminder that it is important to have some downtime. It is important to have that tranquility, to not be on the treadmill of success 24/7. So if you have found that pitching for the things that are really important to you has left you a little bit short of the time for rest and recuperation, you're really being urged to give yourself some moments to do that over the next couple of weeks. But equally, if you are really in the middle of a big push, it's important to consider, do you enjoy the company, the environment, and the emotional connection to the people that you're connecting to? Because if the answer is no, even if you do get something that has some kind of material value, if it's a bit empty, that's not going to be something that nurtures you as much as you might hope. To steer your course in year 2026 that much more shrewdly, why not consider buying one of my personal horoscope forecasts? Totally unique to you, 50% off if you apply Astro26 at the checkout, and it will give you, along with the Life Roadmap report, searing insights of when to time your moves over the next 12 months. Please see the link below for more. Gemini, this is a full moon that creates a lot of potential excitement because the moon's in the part of your situation that's to do with fast exchanges, very much in keeping with your nature. But the moon is about feelings, it's not about ideas, and being in touch with how we really feel within that welter, that maelstream of exchanges, is really going to be the trick over the next couple of weeks. Because I feel you could want to travel, you may want to expand your situation, you may be in the mood to be more independent, even more daring. So the moon in Leo is asking you to ask the question, how does it feel? Also, your ruler Mercury is in a broad right angle with Uranus, the planet of surprises, which is buried in your 12th house. Just be aware that something could come into the open around all the hectic communications and conversations that are going to unfold over these next few weeks. It may be something that you feel you want to get off your chest. It may be that someone else says, but whatever does get disclosed, the chances are it can be amplified in a surprising way. And because you are a sign which really likes a degree of excitement and stimulation, just taking a pause to consider what it really means in terms of that more feeling dimension is going to be the best way you can grapple with this particular year's Leo full moon. To steer your course in year 2026 that much more shrewdly, why not consider buying one of my personal horoscope forecasts? Totally unique to you, 50% off if you apply Astro26 at the checkout, and it will give you, along with the Life Roadmap report, searing insights of when to time your moves over the next 12 months. Please see the link below for more. Cancer, moon cycles have particular resonance for you because your ruler is, of course, the moon. This particular full moon is asking you to stay mindful of your values, your foundations, but also your personal self-worth, as well as everyday money, budgeting in a more practical sense. But on the other side of the heavens, the sun is in the cool, detached Aquarius, which can be very good if you're thinking about a longer term investment or anything to do with shared resources. But there is a very intense combination in Aquarius of Mars and Pluto, and they can be bringing a more impulsive energy to bear within this particular full moon. So for example, if someone shows up over the next 2 weeks who has a magnetism, an aura about them that's very hard to ignore, you may also find yourself drawn towards them, or quite conversely, compelled to stay as far away as possible. But there could also be some politics about to come very much more into the open, and it may be around money, it could be around shared finances, it may be around a business relationship, and those may require some careful discussion over the next couple of weeks. But if you are thinking about a professional situation, just be aware that Neptune has moved back into your 10th house and can create a degree of confusion or at least uncertainty. Now, Saturn, the planet which is very much to do with limitations, is coming to the end of its journey through your sister water sign of Pisces. So over the next couple of weeks, something could come to a big end, and it may be that this full moon will give you a release from something that's been penning you in a way that you haven't been enjoying for some while. Full moons can, of course, create tension. They can be difficult, but they can provide solutions. It just depends on each individual situation. But if you're in a relationship where you feel someone is leveraging in some kind of way, control, power, jealousy, then you may need to take it all back to how it feels and whether it matches your values, because your values, particularly with a Leo full moon, are critical. And I think Leo as well can be very generous, but it's important not to be too generous to the wrong people. So whatever you're discussing at the moment, but particularly where you're most invested, just be guided by the mantra, does it match my values? To steer your course in year 2026 that much more shrewdly, why not consider buying one of my personal horoscope forecasts? Totally unique to you, 50% off if you apply Astro26 at the checkout, and it will give you, along with the Life Roadmap report, searing insights of when to time your moves over the next 12 months. Please see the link below for more. So Leo, your annual full moon is your opportunity over the next 2 weeks to review your commitments and connections to others. It can be through your local community, it could be through your family, your friends, maybe professionally, but of course also personally in an intimate side. But the most important relationship we all have is with ourselves. And a Leo full moon, more than any other, is really asking you to make sure you're not giving away your power in order to keep the peace. Whether it is in a close tie, whether it is with a boss, whether it is with a friend who tends to take you a little bit for granted. And this year's particular full moon is loaded up with additional energies in your opposite sign of Aquarius, not least Mars and Pluto in a conjunction. And what they're asking you to do is be firmer on your boundaries. But you can still make your point in a delicate, even charming way because of the conjunction between Mercury and Venus. And to be honest, if you are getting to know someone at this time and it's going well and it is very mutual, it's going backwards and forwards in a very inclusive way, it can be a time when a new alliance is born that's very, very good for you. But equally, if you are in a situation where you're not really feeling that respect is coming to you, that's where you may want to be that more firm. However, the seventh house, where the energy in Aquarius is not just about relationships. It can also be where we need to be combative. So in traditional astrology, the seventh house is open enemies. So that can be the co-worker that we have targets that we have to match what they achieve. It may be someone we enjoy playing a one-to-one sport with, whether it's tennis or squash, paddle, whatever it might be. That's in a more positive, sporty way. So the seventh house isn't just about trying to find equilibrium and harmony. It's making sure that within that we feel that we're recognised and respected too. So any relationship which is not quite working will need to be reviewed. And my prediction for you for the rest of this month is, if there is a power dynamic in any relationship, or someone keeps making last minute changes of plan, is rather erratic, or perhaps you're uncertain about how a line manager or boss feels about you, I think those are the issues that could be teased into the open by the end of the month. To steer your course in year 2026 that much more shrewdly, why not consider buying one of my personal horoscope forecasts? Totally unique to you, 50% off if you apply Astro26 at the checkout, and it will give you, along with the Life Roadmap report, searing insights of when to time your moves over the next 12 months. Please see the link below for more. So Virgo, full moons have a tendency to push into the open things we're not quite aware of, or things that have been simmering beneath the surface, or it can be things that other people bring to our attention. And this particular full moon occurs in the most delicate part of the moon's journey for you, the 12th house. Now, if you're someone who's very open to the spiritual and psychological dimension, you enjoy healing, workshops, meditation, retreats, this can be a very positive full moon. But if you're someone who's very focused on the practical side of life, very Virgoing, particularly with the cluster of energy in Aquarius, but including your ruler Mercury, it's just a nudge that however much you're trying to reform or be a bit more virtuous about what you eat and drink, your daily routines, the work you're doing, just give yourself a little bit of a nudge to ask yourself, is there something I'm not quite conscious of? Because that can help you to integrate in a holistic way the opposition of energies that are going to come to the surface. But the other thing that can happen with 12th house energies, unfortunately, and particularly professionally, although you are someone who may pride yourself on your efficiency and application in a very detailed way, it may be that someone could try to criticize you a little bit, but they won't necessarily do it to your face, because the 12th house sadly can be the sector in traditional astrology of secret enemies. So just make sure over the next 2 weeks that when it comes to your craft, your chores, or any obligations you've got, that you do fulfill them in a very concentrated way. But if you are feeling a bit underpowered in terms of the physical vitality of your situation, there may be a psychological route, because it is all connected. It's just in the Western world we don't tend to be quite so open to that as we could be. So those are the different scenarios that can play out for you. But if there is somebody who's up to some power plays professionally, you do have in your cosmic repertoire the combination of Mars and also Pluto in a combination, and that can help you to be pretty robust if you feel that someone's being unfair and overly picky in a way which is just not reasonable. To steer your course in year 2026 that much more shrewdly, why not consider buying one of my personal horoscope forecasts? Totally unique to you, 50% off if you apply Astro26 at the checkout, and it will give you, along with the Life Roadmap report, searing insights of when to time your moves over the next 12 months. Please see the link below for more. So Libra, the Leo full moon always asks you to check out your future direction, because it's house 11. House 11 are higher values, to do with our friendships, but also that purpose that goes beyond the material world. But the cluster of energy this year in your sister air sign of Aquarius is so rich, particularly with your ruler Venus in the cosmic mix. It's really pushing you to turn up the volume when it comes to your playfulness, your talents, your charisma. And why should you tone it down in any way? So whatever that future plan may be, at the moment I think you're even more conscious of how you, the individual, has to be magnified in the mix. Good for you, because broadly over the last couple of years Saturn has been really putting quite a lot of constraints on you, maybe around energy, maybe around work, commitments to others. It hasn't necessarily been easy to enjoy things. So over the next few weeks I feel that you could have quite a few different options, whether it is socially, whether it is to do with meetups, maybe it is to do even romantically. But just about Uranus. Uranus is the planet of change, it's the planet of higher truths, it's symbolically the planet which rules the sky. But it has, apart from 4 months last year, been for the last 7 years in a difficult area for very close commitments, particularly romantic ones, but even financially, and that might have been a choppy area. And Uranus is still extending its influence right throughout this month. On this event, it's in a broad square with Mercury, then it clashes with the Sun in week 3 of February, and then in the last week of the month, it goes into a right angle with Mars. But all of those, Mercury, the Sun and Mars, are pushing you to be in touch with what's right for you. So if you do experience anyone who's trying to, in some ways, impose their will or their needs, or limiting you in some ways from just showing just how brilliant you can be, I really feel that you should be strong about it. So as much as the moon is asking you to think about that long-term plan, I think such as the gathering in Aquarius at the moment, it really is turn the music up, let's enjoy the party, but just be aware someone could be jealous by the end of this month. To steer your course in year 2026 that much more shrewdly, why not consider buying one of my personal horoscope forecasts? Totally unique to you, 50% off if you apply Astro26 at the checkout, and it will give you, along with the Life Roadmap report, searing insights of when to time your moves over the next 12 months. Please see the link below for more. For Scorpio, for you, the full moon occurs in the part of your chart which can put your emotions much closer to the surface and make it much more difficult to disguise how you feel. And I think many Scorpios, although can be very sharp in making observations on other people, can be pretty protective about really opening up about more tender issues. And yet at this time, anything to do with where you live, how you live there and who with, family dynamics, your past roots, heritage, perhaps also to do with the decorative side of where you're living, all of those things are very highly charged because your two rulers are so closely together. It doesn't mean to say you can't make progress, because of the combination of Venus and Mercury is terrific. If you wanted to work from home, set up a business in your local community, perhaps even do something online from the comfort of your abode, and that moon position in a very elevated way could be beneficial. But if you are a very private person, there may be something that I think is coming from the source, Pluto, which could come into the open now, that may need to be transformed. It could be something that you're wanting to let go of. It may be something you want to reveal around some of the dynamics that have faced you in your life journey. But it's a tender time, potentially, as well as given you that opportunity to be productive. But however you're feeling and whoever you're living with and whatever the circumstances are, the chances are that how you feel is going to be much harder to disguise over the next 2 weeks. To steer your course in year 2026 that much more shrewdly, why not consider buying one of my personal horoscope forecasts? Totally unique to you, 50% off if you apply Astro26 at the checkout, and it will give you, along with the Life Roadmap report, searing insights of when to time your moves over the next 12 months. Please see the link below for more. Sagittarius, this is a full moon which can have quite a few different potential outcomes. First of all, it's in house 9, which has an echo of the energy of Sagittarius, so it can be freedom loving, independent, and appreciate space. So because the moon can be about the home, if you do find yourself decluttering over the next few weeks, not a surprise. Then again, you may want to change a routine, because on the other side of the heavens, the cluster of energy in the sign of Aquarius is very intense when it comes to exchanging ideas, quick journeys. Maybe you're doing something that's very exciting but quite highly charged, so there could be part of you that does want some kind of spontaneous escape from that at some point. But also the ninth house can be about philosophy and higher truths. And if there is something you're involved with at the moment which is not quite aligned to your beliefs, that may be something you have to grapple with too. But the moon is also in the second decan of the sign of Leo, which is sub-ruled by Jupiter. And that generosity of spirit, which can be a big part of your nature, could be emphasized by that. But let's peer across the other side of the heavens. The energy in the sign of Aquarius also includes Pluto and Mars in a conjunction. And that can make you want to attach yourself in some ways to your ideas or beliefs in a very powerful way. So don't be surprised if you have some intense conversations over the next few weeks, or equally head off somewhere at the drop of a celestial hat. But one thing it won't be over the next 2 weeks is boring. You're really up for some spontaneity and some variety, which, as we all know, is a great ingredient for life. To steer your course in year 2026 that much more shrewdly, why not consider buying one of my personal horoscope forecasts? Totally unique to you, 50% off if you apply Astro26 at the checkout, and it will give you, along with the Life Roadmap report, searing insights of when to time your moves over the next 12 months. Please see the link below for more. So Capricorn, as you burst into year 2026, the cluster of energy in your zodiac sign was really encouraging you to show maximum enthusiasm but willpower when it came to expressing your individual desires, but in terms of ongoing strands, to also inject them with greater passion and drive too. Now they've all moved into the sign of Aquarius, which for you can be about everyday money, but it can also be about foundations, but also your sense of self-worth. And the full moon in the opposite sign to Aquarius is much more to do with the connection to other people, a very deep connection. So if you are discussing, for example, raising money for a property, you're looking to bid on a rental, you're wanting to start your own enterprise, you're waiting to hear what the result is of a pitch you've done, you are waiting for the outcome that comes from the moon in the 8th house. And we can't completely control the process, but what you can do is continue to keep the rhythm going. And really, when you get that rhythm going, you can be formidable, because your application, your attention to detail, taking things forwards step by step in such a determined way, more often than not will render results. But I think the next couple of weeks is going to help you to discover if all that perspiration is going to render some significant results, and it can do. To steer your course in year 2026 that much more shrewdly, why not consider buying one of my personal horoscope forecasts? Totally unique to you, 50% off if you apply Astro26 at the checkout, and it will give you, along with the Life Roadmap report, searing insights of when to time your moves over the next 12 months. Please see the link below for more. So Aquarius, there are some supreme ironies with this particular full moon. 7th house full moons for any zodiac sign is just a celestial nudge to be mindful of relationship matters, just at a time when the 1st house energy is all about being very single-minded and focused on what's important. But this year, for Aquarius people, because of the cluster of energy in Aquarius, but including the very potent duo of Pluto and Mars, you may be much less prepared to flex or pivot towards what other people need or want, because something very important is in the works, something you feel you have to stay very focused on and very active, and it's all about expressing your individuality to the maximum, particularly with Mercury and Venus in a sparkling alliance as well. So, but that doesn't mean to say it's not important to take a few moments to explain the circumstances, be inclusive, just make people feel that they're part of things, even if you're very busy on the hobby, the business idea you've got, the channel that's exciting you, whatever it is that you're really creatively invested in. Maybe it's even a new love relationship, and it could be some friends that feel a little pushed out. Just be conscious that at times in life we do need to have that focus, and otherwise really important change and improvements wouldn't come about. But a little bit of delicacy would also be helpful too. To steer your course in year 2026 that much more shrewdly, why not consider buying one of my personal horoscope forecasts? Totally unique to you, 50% off if you apply Astro26 at the checkout, and it will give you, along with the Life Roadmap report, searing insights of when to time your moves over the next 12 months. Please see the link below for more. So Pisces, astrology is all about cycles. And the Leo full moon each year for you is a practical full moon. So the moon can be about our home. If you're someone who tends to be a bit laid back about where things are, if things are a little cluttered, it's a great opportunity to get a bit more ordered. But this year, because beyond the Sun and the recent addition of Pluto full time, since November 2024, you also have Mars, Mercury and Venus along with them in your 12th house. Now, Mercury is about to enter your sign on the 6th, Venus on the 10th, the Sun on the 18th of February, and that will bring new energy, but you are in a period of reflection, and that reflection or wind down is a natural process, but this year it's magnified many times over. For example, the combination of Pluto and Mars can have a tendency to stir up from the depths some psychological debris that you may not be quite aware of. You may have thought that you dealt with something, and then there could be a sense of anger or disappointment about how something was handled in the past. But then again, the combination of Venus and Mercury is one which could see you connecting to someone from your past in a very positive way. But 12th house energy is quite complex. You know that more than anyone. You're the 12th zodiac sign. And the moon really, within all of this, just says, if you are going through some deep soul searching, resting, doing some healing things, just make sure that you're looking after not just the environment of your home, but also the body as well. So making sure that you're eating well, getting enough sleep, and also ensuring that you get the practical needs of your situation met. Now, once Mercury, Venus and the Sun pitch up in your sign, you are going to experience a big increase in vitality. And if you do feel a bit drained over the next 2 weeks, particularly with Saturn coming to the end of its journey in your sign, I think it's just to be expected. And if you feel better than that, well, that's really great. But with such a lot of players in that 12th house, you're really being asked to look inwards, whilst at the same time make sure that your physical world is kept intact. To steer your course in year 2026 that much more shrewdly, why not consider buying one of my personal horoscope forecasts? Totally unique to you, 50% off if you apply Astro26 at the checkout, and it will give you, along with the Life Roadmap report, searing insights of when to time your moves over the next 12 months. Please see the link below for more.